approximately 2004. Dirichlet and the Multiply Connected History of Humans, the Mendelssohn Youth Movement, by David Shaven. When Lejeune Dirichlet, at 23 years of age, worked with Alexander von Humboldt in making microscopic measurements of the motions of a suspended bar magnet in a specially built hut in Abraham Mendelssohn's garden, he could hear nearby in the garden house the Mendelssohn Youth Movement work through the voicing of J.S. Bach's St. Matthew's Passion. Felix and Fanny Mendelssohn, 19 and 23, were the leaders of a group of 16 friends that would meet every Saturday night in 1828 to explore this dead work, unperformed since its debut a century earlier by Bach. Footnote 1. J.S. Bach had composed and performed this work in Leipzig, 1729. The manuscript was given to Felix by his aunt, Sarah Itzig Levy, a proponent of Bach. Otherwise, one could say that it was fortunate that Felix Mendelssohn had exactly 16 friends to cover the 4 quartets of soprano, alto, tenor, bass, but it were more likely that the orbit defined the planet, that is, the Bach project, cemented the potential relationships. The 2 simultaneous projects in the Mendelssohn Garden at 3 Leipziger Strasse are a beautiful example of Plato's classical education necessary for the leaders of a republic. The astronomer's eyes and the musician's ears worked in counterpoint for the higher purpose of uniquely posing to the human mind how the mind itself worked. As described in the Republic, Book 7, the paradoxes of each field, paradoxes such as the diabolus, that considered separately, tied up in knots, the professionals in each field, taken together, would triangulate, as it were, for the future statesman, the type of problems uniquely designed to properly exercise the human mind. After all, such a mind would have to master more than astronomy and music, simply to bring before the mind the series of paradoxes, so as to be made capable for dealing with the much more complicated dealings of human society. To oversimplify, since the mind does not come equipped with a training manual, the composer of the universe created the harmonics of the heavens and of music as, e.g., a mobile above a baby's crib. In that hut, Dirichlet would be making microscopic measurements as part of making a geomagnetic map of the Earth. The audacity in thinking that these minuscule motions of the suspended bar magnet could capture such unseen properties posed certain appropriate questions to Dirichlet. Gauss's geodetic surveying a decade earlier was paradigmatic of the sort of project that mined such riches out of the ostensibly simple affair of determining where one actually was. But this also implies to locating oneself in the process of a proper daily political intelligence briefing. Similarly, the 16 youth working to solve amongst themselves the complicated interrelationships of Bach's setting of the Passion story, as related by St. Matthew, would have forced their grappling with the scientific problem of ascertaining what our Maker would have in store for us in their attempt to map their own souls. Just for a beginning of their performance questions, how does Jesus intone what he says? How does the chorus audience respond to Jesus and sometimes to each other, etc.? The following historical sketch is offered as a few measurements, but instead of using a suspended magnetic bar, we'll use a few years of Dirichlet's life and thereby try to triangulate some of the important characteristics for a map of the culture that created the world today we are challenged to master. Humboldt's and Mendelssohn's. Dirichlet's patron, Alexander von Humboldt, along with his brother Wilhelm, had studied in the 1780s with a host of pro-American Revolution leaders in Europe, notably including the Mendelssohn's famous grandfather Moses. Those studies can be investigated by reading Moses Mendelssohn's Leibnizian work Morgenstunden, or Morning Studies, which described the lessons that Moses gave to his son Joseph and to the Humboldt youth. Later, two of Moses' sons, Joseph and Abraham, ran the Mendelssohn Bank, which financed many of Alexander von Humboldt's scientific expeditions and projects. Abraham Mendelssohn, the father of Fanny, Felix, Rebecca, and Paul, had set up in his garden at 3 Leipziger Strasse a special magnetically neutral observation hut for Humboldt to measure minute magnetic fluctuations.